Hey, what's up guys? This is Max with Priority Racing. I want to break down some footage from Priority Racing Team's first race out together. We raced the Randall's Island Fixed Gear Criterium right here in New York City. So let's jump right into the footage. We're on the neutral lap of the course. The race always starts with one neutral slow lap behind the motorbike. We're coming into turn 1 here. So this neutral lap is to help us just get a feel for the course. It's early in the season. This is some people's first race of the season, so we just want to make sure everybody's super familiar with the course. So right here we're on a raised bit of road, and off to the right there's some water. So the wind generally comes off the water, so it's a right to left crosswind. This means if you're sitting on the left side of the road, you're a little bit more sheltered from this wind, and if you're on the right side, you're totally exposed. This is going to come into play later in the race. So jumping ahead just a little bit, we go down this downhill, which brings us onto this flat, which is going to bring us into turn 2. Turn 2 is a super fast turn. It's really fun. You can get this turn at 28 to 34 miles an hour probably with the right conditions and just rip around it. Super fun. And we're noticing now that water off to our left. So the crosswind here is reversed of where we were before. So now it's a left to right crosswind, meaning that if you're on the right side of the road, you're a bit more sheltered. Left side of the road, you're eating a bit of wind. As Andrew pulls up beside me, I just want to take 1 second to talk about the team and the bike. So Priority Racing is the first belt drive race team in the US. We're here on the Priority Joker. It's a Gates carbon drive track bike. It's got a 70 tooth front sprocket, absolutely massive, 60 millimeter deep carbon wheels. As my friend Elliot, who we'll see later in this race, put it, it's an absolute rocket ship. It's a super fun bike to ride. And we have 4 riders out today, all on the Priority Joker. We have myself here in the white helmet on the right, Andrew here in the white helmet and white socks on the left. In the rear camera right now, you can see Tyler. And then in just a little bit in orange shoes, we're gonna see Brian move up towards the front. So jumping ahead here just a little bit, we're about to come into the final 2 turns, which have a lot to talk about, but let's just take 1 second to talk about our opening strategy. Before the race we talked, and there were 40 riders registered for this race. That is a huge field to have for fixed gear. So our plan was to get me up towards the front, and I was just gonna do an all-out sprint to try and knock 10 to 20 riders off the back. So right here, we're coming into the final 2 corners of the course. They're a bit more technical, you notice. We have to slow down a lot to get around that corner. It's a little bit off camber. And then one more right turn here onto the start-finish straight. So as we discussed, my plan was to get up to the front and absolutely sprint for all I'm worth, just to try and get a couple riders off the back. We can see in the rear camera right now, Tyler and Brian are both moving into position. And in just a few seconds, the motorbike is gonna beep its horn, it's gonna pull off, and that's gonna be the start of the race. So we're all positioned. We know what's gonna happen. Everybody else is waiting to see. So let's see how it plays out. And we're off, an all-out sprint. I'm just gonna go for all I'm worth. And you'll notice that the other riders on PRT are trying to fall just 2 to 3 wheels behind. They don't wanna chase me down, but they wanna be available in case they're needed. So I'm gonna absolutely rail it around this corner as hard as I can. And we talked about that crosswind. You'll notice I'm immediately off to the left side of the road. That means that anybody behind me is not really getting any benefit of draft, so they're hurting just as bad as I am. Just as the pace starts to slow down, Brian puts in a dig and he goes past. This is where we're gonna start to see the team tactics come into play. So at this point, Andrew's coming up here on my right. Andrew and I do not have to chase this back. We have Brian up the road, and so we want this to work. In fact, when this rider forces me here to the front, you'll notice that I'm opening up a gap in front of me to Andrew. This is called a false tempo. So I'm right now not going as hard as I can. I'm kind of faking it, and I'm purposely opening up this gap in front of me. Brian and Andrew up in that breakaway. If this stays away for the rest of the race, I'm happy. I trust Brian and Andrew to totally take this home. So the riders behind me are starting to figure out what I'm doing, and you notice that they're moving past me. I'm gonna stay in position to respond, but I'm not going to chase. I'm gonna let Brian and Andrew do their thing. So as David here in the lime green jersey and our POV camera person here, Bud White, get into position, they're gonna try and bring this back. Let's see what happens. So as we cut ahead, we notice Brian falling back here. That front group did get caught by the chase. So right now we're all back together. But if you look in the rear camera, you'll notice that we've shelled probably half the field. Of the 40 riders that started, there's maybe 20 left. So it's sort of mission number 1 accomplished for us. We've thinned out this field. We like this selection a lot better now. Jumping ahead even further, you look up the road and you'll see that lime green jersey of David Ramirez. He's going to do a really smart attack around this corner, and this actually ends up being the race-winning attack right here, this early in the race. There he goes, people are responding. You can see Brian here on the right, Tyler's up there on the left, and we are not represented in this move. This is a problem for us, because now we see this guy in the pink sleeves going, Chris, who's a really strong rider. So we have really strong riders up the road, and we are not represented in it. All the alarm bells are going off at this point. What are we going to do as a team to get up there? And spoiler alert, again, this ends up being the move that wins the race. So what are we as a team going to do to mitigate this? So we've jumped ahead here a little bit and we can see the breakaway group just up the road. They're still within sight, and in crit racing there's kind of this idea of out of sight, out of mind. Once the breakaway gets far enough away that you can't see them anymore, the chase group tends to lose motivation. But right now, since we can see the group, you'll notice the pace is really high. This guy in the all black in the front camera here is drilling it pretty hard. But you can see Brian and Andrew setting up here on the right. They're going to try and launch ahead to get into this breakaway in a moment. So let's see how Andrew sets that up. So just before those two technical final corners, Andrew here is going to put in a hard dig, and he's going to see if he can get up to the breakaway without bringing the entire field with him. His odds are much better if he doesn't bring all of us, if he just goes solo. But you can see the riders behind him are really motivated to chase and get on. Now, Andrew didn't get away very far, everybody's right on top of him, but what this did do is instill a lot of motivation into this chase. You notice everybody's a lot more urgent now, they're in a straight line, they're going fast. Brian here is out of the saddle sprinting just to stay on the wheels. Now, if you watch the rear camera, you'll see me in the white helmet coming up here on the right side. I'm eating a bit of wind, which is definitely going to hurt me a bit, but I'm going to use this to slingshot right on his wheel. That attack from the rider in the all black was timed so perfectly for me that I was already up to speed. I was able to latch onto his wheel and catch a free ride up to the breakaway. Just as we discussed before, Brian is my teammate, and so just like when Brian was going off the front and I didn't chase him, Brian's now doing the same for me. It might look like he's sprinting, he got out of saddle for a second, but you see he immediately swings off to the right. He's not going to help this group catch me. That does not benefit him. If I get away and get up to the breakaway by myself, Brian is happy because he's got his teammate up there. So I did make it up to that breakaway, just barely, but I was only just hanging on. As this played out, Brian here found a moment to jump away from the group and get up to the breakaway. He did this so well. Notice how our POV camera here from Bud can't even follow Brian. That's because he did it with so much speed and at the right time. This is the way that you help your teammate. Brian is getting up to the breakaway to help me out, but without bringing the whole field with him to sabotage us. What Brian doesn't know is that I'm currently dying in this breakaway and I'm barely holding on for dear life. So let's see how this plays out now that Brian is going to make it up to the breakaway. So now that I'm up in the breakaway, Brian is in the clear chasing onto the breakaway, we can see Andrew is sitting here 3 wheels back in the chase. Now we're coming on the start finish, there's a bit of speed, and notice how it slows down for a second. That front rider looks behind him. Andrew's going to use that opportunity to slingshot up. So now we're in a great position where we have 3 riders going to get up the road. I'm in the breakaway, Brian is kind of in no man's land, but he's going to catch up, and Andrew's going for it. Unfortunately, Andrew is a super strong rider. Everybody knows him, so he's a little bit marked. And you'll notice here that Chris in the black and orange is right onto his wheel and not going to let him get anywhere. So Andrew does not make it up. But again, this is just a really good example of how we're using our numbers as a team to our advantage in this race. So jumping ahead here, in just a moment, the field is about to catch me. I wasn't able to hang with the breakaway. Once Brian joined the breakaway, I was too gassed. I didn't have to hold on any longer. I trusted Brian to finish off the job, so I just needed to drop off. It would be better for our team if I had stayed in, of course, but I just physically could not do it. So this chase group is catching me right now. So you see Andrew here is at the back, and you see me in the front camera on the right side about to fly backwards and hang on for this chase group. At this point, the selection for the day has been made. That breakaway is staying away. We're now on the final lap. With the breakaway staying away and Brian in it, Andrew and I have kind of done our job for the day. So at this point, we want to have a little bit of fun and play some team tactics and keep the race interesting. So you notice that Andrew is setting up just looks like 4 or 5 wheels back from the front, and I'm right behind him. We had a little mini talk during the race, and we decided that I was going to go for a last lap flyer. So I was going to do a really long attack. So Andrew's going to bring me up at speed, and then I would go for it. If I get caught, Andrew has the better sprint, so Andrew was going to go for the sprint at the end. Again, this is for like 10th, 11th place, so we're just having fun with team tactics, but why not? We're racing bikes. So right here, Andrew's bringing me up, and I'm going to just open up a sprint to make sure that I have enough speed carrying past these riders in front of me that they can't catch onto my wheel. With that 70-tooth sprocket, I'm going to give it everything I got to stay away from this field just for the last 1,000 meters or so. But the field was very motivated, and they caught me right here in the last 2 corners, but they're gassed as well. Notice how Bud's camera here lets me back in front of him. That to me says he's tired, he can't stay away from me, he needs that lead out. I know Andrew's back there, so I'm going to lower my head and just give it all I got here in this final straight. The unfortunate thing is that I didn't have a lot left. Between the opening sprint and all these attacks and counterattacks, I was just totally done. My legs were cooked. So Bud here has to come around me probably earlier than he wanted to. But Andrew in the rear camera is going to open it up. He's going to spin up his legs really fast. Track bikes, we most often see a seated sprint, so let's see what Andrew's got here with the seated sprint. And he's going to get Bud at the line. Beautiful job, Andrew. So that was our first race out as a team. It was a super fun time. We worked really well together. I'm really excited for what we can accomplish. The reception was awesome. People are so interested in the bike with the belt drive. It's a whole new thing for a lot of folks, and we're really proud to be representing it. If you want to learn more about the Joker, PRT, Gates Carbon Drive, any of the above, just shoot us a message. We'll have our contact info on the screen below.